The sentiment seems to be shock, but not really a surprise. What's your reaction to the fact that Truss is out after just 45 days in office?
I mean, it's sensationally poor form. We're going to have a new British Prime Minister in 7 days' time who will be chosen by Conservative MPs. Now, that will mean that Britain has had three Prime Ministers in 2 months. It's also had four chancellors in 4 months, the people in charge of the economy, and three Home Secretaries in about as many months. So this is chaos that is not a traditional part of British politics. We usually have prime ministers for 10 years at a go. So this is, a pretty remarkable situation. And I think the feeling amongst most Britons is that it's totally unacceptable. The polling shows that the vast majority, 60 or 70% of people in the country, want a general election. And that includes the majority of people who vote Conservative. Now, there probably isn't going to be a general election because for that to happen, Conservative MPs would effectively be voting to lose their job. And so the psychodrama that is British politics in 2022 is going to shuffle on into another week with another Prime Minister.
Do you think Boris Johnson will take another kick at the can?
No, I don't. Only about 2 weeks ago, he registered his private business to start doing speeches as a former PM. His first speech, he's going to be paid £150,000 for. Now, that's the same as a year in the job as Prime Minister. So I imagine that's quite persuasive. But also, who would want to be the British Prime Minister now? The Conservative Party is unbelievably unpopular. It's got no chance in hell of winning a general election, whenever that may be. The MPs are hating each other and ripping each other apart. The economy has crashed and the public hate the government. I think Boris Johnson will be glad to be away from this mess, even if he was a significant part of making it.
How did this happen, Benjamin, so quickly? Because we knew Johnson was resigning. There was this whole process to pick a new Conservative leader. 2 weeks of the 45 days that she spent in office, the country was in mourning over the passing of the Queen. So there was very little time for her to do really any work. Let's be honest about that. So how did this happen so quickly? And where was the judgment in choosing Liz Truss? I'm baffled.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, saying she did 45 days in office is the flattering way to describe it, because really she did 35. 10 of those were the mourning period for Her late Majesty the Queen. It's going to be a brilliant quiz question in years to come. Who was the British Prime Minister when the Queen died? Because people aren't going to remember Liz Truss, given how short her tenure was. Now, the way in which she became Prime Minister was that Conservative Party members, of which there's about 160,000, they went to them and they got a vote on who of the two people, Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak, the former Chancellor, which one they'd like. Liz Truss won, but she won with the smallest majority of any Prime Minister elected by Tory members, so it wasn't that convincing. And what you saw was that even though she wasn't that popular at all among her own Conservative MPs, lots of them, when it looked like the members were going to support her, they jumped ship. They said, we want Liz Truss, even though they didn't think she'd be very good, because they knew they'd get a cabinet job or become a government minister if they went for her. And so you saw the dominoes go in that direction. And what a lot of Tory MPs, or some Tory MPs, are saying today is that one of them put it, a man called Sir Charles Walker, he said, I'm sick of talentless politicians putting their X in a box so that they can get a red box to be a government minister. And what you've seen is this kind of Italian-style politics where people are just putting their own personal ambition, putting people who appeal to the smallest majority, the smallest or the biggest minority rather than acting in the national interest. And I think that's how you got Liz Truss to be the British Prime Minister, a rather reckless and short-term approach. And so now we move on to another one that I think whoever gets office, they're doomed from the start, even if they're more competent than Liz Truss.